Life has a very strange way of teaching us lessons. Think about the suffocating pressure of a toxic New York office, or a high-stakes Silicon Valley boardroom, where a single malicious rumor can derail your entire career in seconds. You feel this desperate, frantic urge to explain yourself to everyone. But here is the paradox. The harder you try to clear your name, the guiltier you look. What if I told you the ultimate weapon against slander isn't a sharp argument, but absolute silence? Watch until the end, and you will reclaim the power of a true Stoic master. To truly understand why explaining yourself is a trap, we must look at where our power truly lies. Centuries ago, a man named Epictetus was born into the harshest reality imaginable. He was a slave in Hierapolis, spending the first part of his life under the complete control of others. He suffered physical abuse, walked with a permanent limp, and had every reason to feel bitter, defensive, and desperate to plead his case to the world. Yet, when he finally obtained his freedom, he didn't waste his time seeking apologies or explaining his worth to those who had misjudged him. Instead, he founded a school of philosophy and taught a revolutionary principle that would echo through history: the dichotomy of control. Epictetus taught that our reality is divided into two distinct parts: things that are up to us and things that are not up to us. Up to us are our opinions, our desires, and our actions. Not up to us are our reputations, the opinions of others, and how they perceive our character. Slander, rumors, and misunderstandings fall squarely into the second category. They belong to the outside world. They belong to the minds of other people. Let's look at a concrete analogy to see this clearly. Imagine an artist painting a masterpiece. They spend months refining every stroke, pouring their heart and soul into the canvas. One day a stranger walks by, barely glances at the artwork, and throws a bucket of mud directly onto it. If the artist drops their brush, panics, and desperately chases after that stranger down the street, screaming and trying to explain why the painting was actually beautiful, what happens? They abandon their studio. They lose their creative flow. And worse, they leave the mud to dry on the canvas, ensuring the masterpiece is never finished. We do this exact same thing in our modern lives every single day. Think about the high-pressure environment of an office meeting, or the digital battlefield of social media. Someone misinterprets your intentions. They spread a false rumor behind your back to damage your position. Immediately, your ego is bruised, and your anxiety flares up. You enter a state of frustrated struggle. You start crafting long, defensive emails. You pull people into private rooms to clarify your side of the story. You lose sleep, replaying the scenario over and over, desperately trying to manipulate their perception of you. But what is the truth? The truth is, the moment you open your mouth to defend yourself against an irrational accusation, you have already lost. Look at what you are actually doing. You are abandoning your own mental sanctuary. You are taking your peace of mind and handing it directly to the person who insulted you. You are practically begging them for validation, pleading with them to understand that you are a good person. This is the Lee, the trap of explanation. The more desperately you try to force people to see your truth, the more anxious and weak you appear. Your defensiveness signals that their words have power over you. It signals that your self-worth is fragile and entirely dependent on their approval. The real power lies in reframing the entire situation. Kevu Kong wants a reaction. They want to see you sweat, scramble, and lose your composure. Trust me, the most authoritative, masculine, and truly stoic response to any form of slander is to treat it as if it were nothing more than a gust of wind blowing against a mountain. When you refuse to engage, when you look at an accusation and simply choose to remain silent, you are demonstrating absolute certainty in who you are. You are choosing an effortless flow of confidence over an exhausting, undignified battle. Because the truth is very simple. When you explain yourself, you are granting the slanderer the supreme power to define who you are. Number 1. Accept the truth that you cannot manage the minds of others. We spend an incredible amount of our lives under the illusion that if we just find the right words, if we just lay out our case clearly enough, we can force people to understand us. We believe we can correct every misconception and fix every flawed opinion. But the truth is, the mind of another person is an entirely separate, sovereign territory. It is completely beyond your reach, completely outside of your circle of control. When you obsess over how others perceive you, you are trying to govern a kingdom that you do not own. Think of it like a grandmaster playing a high-stakes game of chess. You can study the board, analyze the positions, and execute your own moves with perfect discipline and precision. That is your part of the game. But what you can never do is physically force your opponent to make the move you want them to make. You cannot control their strategy. You cannot control their internal narrative, and you cannot control their biases. If you spend the entire game stressing over what is happening inside their head, you will inevitably lose focus on your own pieces. You will lose your composure, make careless mistakes, and destroy your own chances of victory. So how does this play out in our modern everyday lives? Have you ever stayed awake until 3 in the morning, staring at your ceiling, drafting a massive text message or a long, defensive email? Have you ever spent hours mentally rehearsing a script to prove your innocence to a colleague or a friend who has already formed a toxic, negative opinion about you? You spiral into deep anxiety, gripping onto the hope that this one perfect explanation will finally change their mind. But trust me, it never works. When someone has chosen to misunderstand you, no amount of logic or evidence will ever be enough to sway them. They are committed to their own version of reality. The moment you realize this, a profound shift happens. You stop grasping for validation. You stop wasting your precious mental energy trying to fix things that were never yours to control in the first place. Instead of a frustrated struggle to change their narrative, you choose an effortless flow of peace. You let them think whatever they want to think, because their opinion does not alter your reality. So here is the direct advice for your daily life. The next time you feel that familiar, frantic urge to explain yourself, catch yourself in the act. Take a deep breath and close the laptop. Put down the phone. Delete the long paragraphs you were about to send. Reclaim your internal sanctuary and let your silence speak for you. That is the ultimate power of letting go. Number 2. Understand that slander is a reflection of the speaker, not you. When someone speaks badly about you, your immediate instinct is to look inward. You ask yourself, what did I do wrong? How can I fix this? But the Stoics teach us to flip our perspective entirely. The truth is, people can only give away what they have inside themselves. A person filled with peace, competence, and self-confidence has no desire to tear others down. Therefore, when someone launches a vicious attack or spreads a malicious rumor about you, they are not actually exposing your character. They are exposing their own. They are revealing the bitterness, the deep insecurity, and the jealousy that lives within their own hearts. Let's look at a realistic example from everyday corporate life. Imagine a coworker who discovers that you just received a major promotion or were chosen to lead a high-profile project. Instead of congratulating you, they begin whispering to other colleagues, claiming that you only got the position through favoritism, office politics, or some underhanded trick. They try to minimize your hard work and damage your professional reputation. If you look at this through an ordinary lens, you feel deeply insulted. You want to confront them, argue with them, and demand an apology. But if you look closer, what you are actually seeing is a projection of their own deepest fears. They are terrifyingly insecure about their own stagnating career. They cannot handle the reality of your success because it highlights their own lack of discipline and progress. Their slander is a frantic, desperate attempt to bring you down to their level so they can feel better about themselves. The moment you realize this, your anger evaporates. You shift from a state of frustrated struggle into a position of complete emotional authority. You look at their malicious words, not as a personal threat, but as a symptom of their internal suffering. You don't feel the need to defend yourself because there is nothing to defend against. Their lies don't belong to you. They belong entirely to them. Marcus Aurelius famously wrote, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury." You do not lower yourself to their level by fighting back with more words, nor do you validate their behavior by pleading for them to stop. So how do you practice this in your daily life? When you hear a rumor or face a false accusation, you do not react with fury. You don't allow their toxic energy to disrupt your internal sanctuary. Instead, you observe their behavior with a sense of calm clarity, almost like a physician diagnosing a disease. You reframe your anger into a quiet, detached pity. You realize that while they are trying to harm your external reputation, they are actively destroying their own character from within. You simply let their words fall away, knowing that your true worth is entirely untouched by their internal chaos. That is the true power of an elevated mindset. But how do you maintain that absolute calm when your own ego is screaming for justice? How do you stand completely unshaken when the storm is howling all around you? Let's move on to the next lesson. Number 3. Build the strength of the rock. Many people completely misunderstand Stoicism. They think it means becoming cold, emotionless, or numb to reality. But true Stoicism is something entirely different. It is not about suppressing your feelings. It is about building an unshakable core of internal strength that cannot be manipulated by the chaos around you. It is about maintaining absolute steadiness in the middle of a violent storm. The Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man in the world at his time, faced constant betrayals, political schemes, and vicious slander from people he trusted. Yet, he famously wrote a reminder to himself in his journal, "Be like the cliff against which the waves continually break, but it stands firm and tames the fury of the water around it." Think about that imagery for a moment. Picture a massive, jagged rock standing on the edge of the Atlantic Ocean. The winter waves crash against it with terrifying force. The water roars, foams, and slams into the stone thousands of times a day, trying desperately to break it down, to move it, or to shake its foundation. But what does the rock do? It does absolutely nothing. It does not argue with the ocean. It does not panic. It does not scream back at the waves, and it does not try to explain why it deserves to stand there. It simply remains exactly what it is. It lets the waves crash, and in doing so, the water eventually loses its energy, breaks apart, and dissolves into harmless white foam. The rock remains completely untouched. In your modern life, malicious rumors and workplace slander are those crashing waves. When someone spreads a lie about you, they are desperately trying to evoke a reaction. They want to see you break. They want you to get angry, lose your focus, and start frantically defending your honor. If you give them that reaction, you let the waves drag you out into the chaotic sea. But when you choose the path of the rock, you change the entire game. The next time you hear a false rumor or face an unfair accusation at work, do not immediately reply. Do not lash out. Instead, practice a simple but incredibly powerful behavioral habit. Take a deep breath and do absolutely nothing for the first 5 seconds. Let the words hang in the air. Observe the attack with detached curiosity, but do not give it any of your energy. By remaining completely still, you force the attacker's malice to burn itself out against your silence. Your silence is the ultimate tan-nun answer to anyone who wants to bring you down. So how do you implement this right now? You stop participating in the drama. You stop giving a voice to things that do not matter. When you remain unshaken, you reclaim your internal sanctuary and prove that your worth is entirely beyond their reach. That is the power of the rock. But remaining silent does not mean you stop progressing. In fact, while you stay silent, there is a far more effective way to destroy a rumor without ever uttering a single word. Let's move on to the next lesson. Number 4. Let your results speak for you. When someone misjudges or slanders you, your immediate human reaction is to look for a microphone. You want to shout your truth, argue your case, and prove your innocence through endless words. But the Stoics understood a deeper reality. Words are cheap, easily twisted, and completely outside of your control. The only thing that is truly up to you is your action, your production, and your standard of excellence. True power does not lie in a clever defense, it lies in a finished masterpiece. Actions speak with an authority that no rumor can survive. Consider the modern American corporate landscape. It is an intensely competitive environment, filled with tight deadlines, high-stakes metrics, and unavoidable office politics. In this world, a toxic colleague might try to destroy your standing by telling the team that you are incompetent, lazy, or that your recent success was just a fluke. You could spiral into self-doubt, or you could engage in an exhausting, undignified battle of he said, she said. But think about what happens when you shift your mindset. In a data-driven world, there are certain things that simply cannot be slandered. A clean piece of code, a massive spike in revenue, and flawless execution, or a project delivered perfectly on deadline. These are concrete realities. They are unyielding facts. When your results are undeniable, the slander against you stops looking like a critique and starts looking like absolute foolishness. Your excellence leaves the attacker with nowhere to hide. The practical step for you in your daily life is to reclaim every single ounce of energy that has been damaged or stolen by drama and pour it directly into your craft. When a rumor starts circulating behind your back at the office, do not pull people into conference rooms to clear your name. Do not waste your evenings typing out desperate explanations on Slack. Instead, double down on your discipline. Arrive earlier, focus deeper, and execute your tasks with an effortless flow of precision. Let your work become so outstanding that it forces everyone around you to question the validity of the rumor. The best response to bad intentions is an undeniable display of competence. By choosing to let your results do the talking, you move away from a frustrated struggle for approval and step into a position of ultimate certainty. You realize that you don't need to spend your life managing people's opinions when your track record speaks for itself. It is a quiet, authoritative victory, and when you have achieved those undeniable results, the way you face your accuser directly will determine whether you are a true leader or just a defensive target. Let's move on to the fifth lesson. Number 5. Respond with absolute indifference. There are moments in life when you cannot simply walk away or hide behind your results. Sometimes the drama finds you. Someone confronts you directly in the middle of a busy office floor, or accuses you face-to-face during a high-stakes project meeting. In those intense moments, your biological instinct is to fight back. Your ego flares up, your heart rate increases, and you want to launch into a frantic, desperate defense to prove them wrong. But a true Stoic master approaches direct confrontation with a completely different weapon: witty, detached composure. The truth is, when someone attacks you to your face, they are playing a psychological game. They expect you to either explode with anger or crumble in fear. When you do neither, you completely shatter their strategy and assume total control over the interaction. The philosopher Epictetus provided us with the perfect blueprint for handling direct insults. Centuries ago, a student ran up to him, deeply stressed, and told him that a certain person had been spreading terrible rumors and speaking badly about him behind his back. Epictetus didn't get angry. He didn't ask for details, and he didn't plan a confrontation. Instead, he simply smiled and said, "If he knew all my other vices, he would not have mentioned only these." Think about the sheer brilliance and power of that response. By refusing to deny the rumors, Epictetus completely neutralized the attack. He didn't enter a frustrated struggle to protect his reputation. He showed the world that his self-worth was so grounded and his understanding of his own flaws so complete that the petty words of a critic couldn't even scratch the surface of his mind. He effectively told the slanderer, "You think you found a flaw. Trust me, I have far worse ones. Your insult is insignificant." So how do you apply this historical wisdom to your modern professional life? Imagine a toxic colleague walks up to your desk in front of your entire team and says, Your performance on this project was completely sloppy and uninspired. Instead of turning red, stammering through excuses, or attacking their track record, you take a slow breath. You look them directly in the eye, let a calm smile form on your face, and say with an effortless flow of confidence, "Thank you for the feedback. I'll keep that in mind." Then, without waiting for a reply, you calmly turn back to your computer screen and resume your work. That is the power of absolute indifference. You didn't yell, you didn't argue, but with one sentence, you completely disarmed them. You demonstrated to everyone in the room that this person's toxic opinion holds zero weight in your reality. You left them standing there, looking petty and desperate for a reaction that you refused to grant them. It is a profoundly satisfying, authoritative way to play the game. If you can feel this shift in perspective helping you reclaim your position and protect your energy, do me a simple favor. Take a second to hit the subscribe button. It helps us grow and ensures you never lose touch with this community of Stoic discipline. Now, let's look at how to protect that energy for the long term. Number 6. Protect your core energy and establish ironclad boundaries. Your attention, your focus, and your emotional stability are the most valuable assets you possess. They form the foundation of your inner ecosystem, the mental sanctuary from which all your creativity, power, and confidence flow. Yet, we live in a world where toxic people constantly try to breach those boundaries, attempting to pull us into their chaotic web of office drama, petty jealousies, and malicious rumors. The mistake most of us make is treating these distractions as if they deserve our time. We engage, we analyze, and we allow ourselves to be dragged into an exhausting, frustrated struggle to correct people who don't actually matter. But the truth is, your energy is finite. Every single second you spend reacting to a slanderer is a second you steal from your own growth, your own success, and your own peace of mind. Think about a skilled farmer tending to a beautiful, high-yield crop. He has poured months of hard labor, discipline, and planning into his land. One morning, he looks out and notices that some invasive weeds have started creeping into the edges of his soil. What does the farmer do? He doesn't sit on the ground and weep. He doesn't pull up a chair, sit down next to the weeds, and try to have a long, logical debate with them about why they shouldn't be stealing his nutrients. He doesn't get angry at the weeds for doing exactly what weeds do. That would be a massive waste of his focus. Instead, he maintains an authoritative, calm demeanor. He walks over with absolute certainty, quietly slices the weeds out by the roots, and tosses them aside to wither and die in the sun. He cleanses his field without letting a single drop of emotional energy go to waste. And then he immediately turns his attention back to nurturing his harvest. In your daily life, toxic people are those weeds. When a colleague tries to destabilize you with passive-aggressive comments, or a group of peers tries to hook you into a circle of workplace rumors, you must act like the farmer. You do not argue. You do not explain yourself. Instead, you establish a boundary of iron. You block the toxic emails, you mute the unnecessary group chats, and you further completely their very presence in the room. You don't ignore them out of weakness or fear. You ignore them out of an elevated sense of self-respect. You look past them as if they are entirely invisible, denying them the privilege of accessing your mind. By cutting off their supply of attention, you force their malice to dry up and fade away on its own. When you implement this level of radical detachment, you stop fighting a losing battle against external forces and step into a reality of absolute peace. You realize that you have the ultimate power to choose who gets to sit at your table and who gets left outside the gates. You reclaim your territory, protect your focus, and ensure your energy remains pure for the things that truly serve your destiny. That is the power of letting go. When we step back and look at the grand architecture of our lives, the truth becomes beautifully clear. Life is not about controlling what other people say about you, but mastering how you respond to it. True power, the kind of authoritative, quiet confidence that the ancient Stoics cultivated, does not look like a frustrated struggle to change the minds of your critics. Standing firm in your position does not mean winning a petty argument. It means choosing to stand entirely outside of that argument. It is about understanding that your self-worth is a sacred internal sanctuary, a territory that can never be breached unless you willingly hand over the keys. We waste so much of our finite time on earth trying to fix narratives that were never ours to manage in the first place. We cling to the desperate illusion that we can force toxic individuals to see our value. But the moment you release that grip and step into an effortless flow of radical detachment, everything changes. You stop reacting. You stop pacing the floor. You stop explaining. You simply let your results, your character and your silence construct an unyielding wall around your mind. Trust me, the world will continue to whisper, and people will always find reasons to misjudge your path. But their opinions have zero power to alter your reality unless you grant them permission. So let this be your ironclad rule going forward. Never lower yourself to defend your honor to those who are determined to misunderstand you. Reclaim your internal territory, safeguard your focus, and commit entirely to your own personal growth. Do not explain. Simply live your life with such unshakable excellence, discipline and integrity that the slander against you automatically becomes the most ridiculous lie imaginable. To deepen your understanding of this mindset and discover how the great Stoic emperors trained their minds to remain absolutely unshakable in the face of betrayal and chaos, click on the video showing on your screen right now. Let's keep moving forward on this journey of self-mastery together. I will see you there.